Okay, sir. You may start, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Good morning, all of you. Today I am in one more new chapter, that is the control and coordination. Control and coordination kade bandaka. See it. We all are the living organisms, right? Commonly, we all are been having a life, right? When we can say we all are been living organism means there have been certain the reactions, or we can say metabolic functions are been going on in our body, and because of those metabolic actions, we are going to be live, right? So then we are called as a living organisms. Okay, see it. Commonly, with the non-living organisms, where there is no metabolic activities have been going on, and there is no reactions in their bodies, especially in the non-living organisms. So here, I want to say that this control and coordination, especially it takes in the living organisms only, not in the non-living organisms. I wanted to say it. Okay, so I'll start the chapter here. See it. So in this chapter, we are going to be learn about the nervous system, right? Especially the structure of a neuron, and what is a reflex action, the human brain structure and its function, and how the nervous tissues are causing the actions. That also we are going to learn. And apart from that, what kind of the coordinations that takes place in the plants, and how the plants are going to be response to the stimulus. And apart from that, what kind of the movements we are going to be seeing in the plants, like a chemotropic, phototropic, thigmotropic. These movements also we are going to be learning this particular topic. And apart from that, the plant hormones, those we call it as phytohormones. There have been 5 different types of plant hormones. We are going to be learn this in this chapter. Auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, ethylene, and abscisic acid regarding their functions, how they have been working in the plants, and apart from that, how their functioning and where they have been present. These things we are going to learn in this particular chapter. And apart from that, at the last bit of the topic, that is about the hormones in the plants, different kind of glands, which hormones they have been secreting, right? How they are been functioning in our body, in which part they are been producing, and these things we are going to be learn in this particular chapter. Okay, so let us start with the introduction of this particular chapter. See, the previous chapter we didn't study, that is a life process. Then also, as we know, as we have studied from the lower classes, based on that, so we'll discuss how the control and coordination it is going to be takes place. See, commonly we says that in our body there have been various activities are been going on, right? So those processes we call it as a life processes, right? We call it as life processes. You can take the breathing, you can take the digestion, you can take the excretion, right? You can take the many activities that is been running in our body. Those all the processes we call it as a life processes, right? So these all the life processes that is going to be functioning, right? And because of those functioning only, we are going to be living, right? See it. We looked at a life process involved in the maintenance of functions in the living organisms, right? So these all the activities which have been running in our body, they have been maintaining the organism to be a live, to give a life, we can say it. With this with this notion, let us start here. See here. They have been saying here something about the moving things, right? You can see it. Something about the moving things. As we know that all the living organisms are able to move from one place to another place, but if you come towards the plants, they are unable to move, right? Those movements we can see in the plants as well as the animals. See, There is a question that what is movement and what is growth, right? Whether there is a difference in between these two, right? Whether there have been any difference in between these two. So, because about that, we are going to discuss here later words how because of these growth and movement, whether they are been considering for the control and coordination, we are going to be learned here. See it. If you say something moving, we say it is alive. Some of these movements are in fact the results of a growth, right? As in a plants. See it. Somewhere we are saying that growth is nothing but a movement. But somewhere we are saying that movement is only a movement, it is not a growth. Okay. Then we have to define the growth. What is growth? Okay. We says that growth is an irreversible process. Growth is an irreversible process. What happens means there is an increase in the size of an organism due to a cell division. Due to a cell division, and because of the cell division, there is a number of cells are going to be increases. And when the number of cells are going to increases, we call it as a growth ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Okay, what is growth? Growth is an irreversible process. Well, what happens? There is an increase in the size of an organism due to cell division and increases in the number of cells that leads to growth. But movement, we define it as there is a moving from one place to another place that we call it as a movement, right? ಒಂದ್ ಜಾಗದಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಜಾಗಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ cell division or increase in the cell numbers, right, in the body, that we call it as a growth. See, a growth can be happens both in the living as well as a non-living. ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ growth ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, but ಅಲ್ಲಿ increase in number ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, but here increase in number of cells and a cell division ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. But in the non-living things there is no cell division. If you keep books one about the other, there is an increase in number and size also taking place. That is we can also define as the growth, but that is in case of the non-living things. But in the living things, there is an increase in the number of cells and an increase in their size. That is we call it as a growth. See, so they are given one example here. As in plants, a seed germinates and grows. We can see that the seedlings moving over the course of a few days, it pushes the soil aside and comes out, right? But if it's a growth were to be stopped, and these movements would not happen. Some movements, as in many animals and some plants, are not connected with the growth. See, as I saying that ಒಂದು ಬೀಜನ ನಾವ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಗಿಡದಿಂದ ಏನ್ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಮಣ್ಣಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿದ್ದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಮಣ್ಣಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿದ್ದಾಗ ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮಳೆ ಗಿಳೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ಮಣ್ಣು ಒಂದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಬಿದ್ದು ಬೀಜ ಮಣ್ಣಿನ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವೇ ಒಂದು ಬೀಜನ ಮಣ್ಣಿನ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹಚ್ತೀವಿ, ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೊಸ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಅಂತ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ನೀರ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಿವಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಅಥವಾ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ನೇಚರ್ ಇಂದಾನೆ ಮಳೆ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸೀಡು ಜರ್ಮಿನೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜರ್ಮಿನೇಟ್ ಆದಾಗ ಅದು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇಲಿರುವಂತ ಮಣ್ಣನ್ನ ಸೈಡಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಪುಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ತರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಈ ತರ ಪುಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಇದು ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸೀಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಜರ್ಮಿನೇಷನ್ ಆಗಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ಮು ಮತ್ತೆ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಅದು ಮೇಲಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದಾ? ಅದು ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದಾ? ನೋ, ವಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ ಸೇ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್. Instead of that one, we have to say it as a growth ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸಿ, as it says that these movements would not happen. Some movements, as in many animals and some plants, are not connected with the growth. So what are the movements we have seen in the plant growth? Plant in ಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, so those are not a movement, that is not connected with the growth ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. But if we come towards the other kind of movements, so we say it as a running. ನಾವು ಓಡೋದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, The children are been swinging early, swing marta idare. The buffaloes are been chewing the curd. We are eating, right? We are doing a work, we are doing a dance. So these all are, we can consider it as movements, right? It is right. So these movements are not caused by the growth. Idella growth alla. So they are only moving the things from one place to another place. ಈ ಕೈಯಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ that is we call it as a movement. So it is not connected with the growth ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು, right? See, why do we associate such visible movements with a life? ಯಾಕೆ ಆ movements ಗಳು ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ, right? Why they are being present? Because the movements are nothing but a response to a change in the environment of an organism. So ಈ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪಾಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ನಾವೇನಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ ಇದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಇದೆ, ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ಅಲ್ಲೇನೋ ಬೆಂಕಿ ಬಿದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಬೆಂಕಿ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ, ಅದರಿಂದ ದೂರ ಓಡ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? ದೂರ ಓಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಆರಾಮ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದ್ ವೇಳೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಹುಲಿ ಬಂತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ವಿ ರನ್ ಅವೇ, ರೈಟ್? ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಟೈಗರ್, ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಲಾಯನ್. ಸೊ ಈ ತರ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಓಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ವೈ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಬಿನ್ ರನ್ನಿಂಗ್? ನಾರ್ಮಲಿ ಇಫ್ ದರ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಈಸರ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮೂವ್ ಈಸಿಲಿ. ನಾವು ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಟೈಮ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಬಟ್ ಒಂದ್ ವೇಳೆ ಹುಲಿ ಬಂತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಓಡಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ? See, why these things have been happening? ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಓಡಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ? ಯಾಕೆ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡಿಲ್ಲ? Why we didn't stop there? Why we have been running? It is because that there is a change in the environment. ಅಲ್ಲೇನೋ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಎಂತ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಭಯ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಇದೆ, ರೈಟ್? So it is we have been fearing from that particular tiger or a lion which has been standing in front of us. So because of that, what we do means we run away from that particular place. That is, we say that the movements are always caused by, because there is a change in the environment, right? And because the change in the environment, our body gives a response, and we are been running from that particular place. We can say it. See it. As I say that we think of movement as a response to change in the environment of organism. See here, one more example they are given. The cat may running because it has seen a mouse. Alena mouse nodide, so it is feeling hungry, right? So mouse ಅನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಒಂದು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅದನ್ನ ತಿನ್ಬೇಕು, ಆ ಮೌಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ತಿನ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ತಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? And what happens? It start to run towards the mouse. ಬಟ್ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾಳೆ ಬೆಟ್ಗಳು ಮೌಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಓಡೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಭಯ ಪಟ್ಟು ಓಡೋಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. ಓಕೆ, ಸಿ ದೀಸ್ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಬೆಕ್ಕು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಹೋಯ್ತು? ಅಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಅಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಇಚ್ಛೆ ಕಾಣ್ತು, ಅಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಮೌಸ್ ಕಾಣ್ತು ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. ಸಿ not only that, we also think of the movement as an attempt by living organism to use changes in their environment to their advantages. ಈ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಕೇವಲ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಟ್, ಫಾರ್ ಅವರ್ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜಸ್, ನಮ್ಮಗೋಸ್ಕರ, ನಮ್ಮ ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ನೆಸ್ ಗೋಸ್ಕರ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಬೀನ್ ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್. ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ಹಿಯರ್, ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ we have been dancing, right? Dance ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ because we want to feel something happiness, right? ಇಲ್ಲೋ ಖುಷಿ ಆದಾಗ ನಾವು ಡ್ಯಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. This dance, it means that for it is creating a happiness for us. ನಾವು ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮೌತ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? ನಾವು ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಹಿಡಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಹಿಡಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ರೈಟ್? ತಿನ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಸಿ ಹಿಡಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ತಿನ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನು ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯೋ, this is the advantage, right? Here, like an example, the plants grow out into the sunshine. ಈಗ ಗಿಡಗಳು ನೀವು ಕತ್ಲಲ್ಲಿ ಬಳಸಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, they always need a sun, right? So what happens? ನೀವು ಕತ್ಲಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೆಸಿದ್ರೆ ಕೂಡ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳಕು ಬರುತ್ತೋ the plants start to move towards that particular direction, right? So it is an advantage of the growth or a movement, especially in case of the plants, we can say it. So if you come towards the one more thing, that is the children are try to get a pleasure and fun out of swinging, right? As I said, the dancing is also kind of a pleasure and a fun, right? Apart from the playing the things, that is also fun, right? So these we are getting because of the pleasure. ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ಯಾಕೆ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ಯಾಕೆ ಆಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ಲೆಜರ್ಗೋಸ್ಕರ, ನಮ್ಮ ಮನಃಶಾಂತಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಅಂತ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. See, the buffaloes chase the curd to help break up the tough food, so as it to be able to digest it in a better way. Naವೇನು ತಿನ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ even we are going to eat, even the buffaloes, even all organisms are going to be eat ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ chewing process ಏನಿದೆ, ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, why we are chewing the food. ಸೊ ಅಂತ ಫುಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ನುಂಗೋದಾ? ನುಂಗಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಎಂಗಲ್ಫ್, ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೋಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಹರ್ಟ್ ಟು ದ ಈಸೋಫೇಗಸ್ಗೆ ಹರ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಅಂಡ್ ಟು ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ಆ ಡೈಜೆಷನ್ ಸರಿ ಆಗಲ್ಲ, ಹಂಗೆ ಉಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಬಿನ್ ಡೂಯಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಚೀವಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ಮೌತ್. ಮೌತ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಚೀವಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಚೀವಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ದಂಗ್ ಮಲಿತಾ ಹೋದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ the food partially get digested in the mouth itself, alva. So like here, even in the buffaloes, even in the human beings, so we are doing a chewing and we are partially digesting the food, and remaining food is going to digest in our stomach, right? So it helps for the a better digestion, we can say here. Means, see, we are getting the advantages from the movements, right? See, when a bright light is focused on our eyes, or when we touch the hot object, ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಖರವಾದ ಬೆಳಕು ಬಿತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಕಣ್ಣನ್ನು ಮುಚ್ಕೋತೀವಿ. We have been closing the eyelids, right? We are closing the eyelids. Why we are closing? Because it has been hurting for us. So what our mind will say is, close your eyes, man. You are getting a hurt from the light. Your eyes will get damaged. See, there is a eyes movement. This is the kind of advantage we can say. Even sometimes if you are touching any hot object, ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಬಿಸಿ ವಸ್ತುನ ನೀವು ಮುಟ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಓ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೈ ಸುಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಪಟ್ ಅಂತ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕೈಯನ್ನ ವಾಪಸ್ ಎಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? What happens here means we are detecting the changes in the environment, right? ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ changes ಅನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, and because of those changes we are start to respond. ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, and those response in the form of a movement, right? Here, why we are doing a movement? Because to protect ourselves from even the light rays, or even from the hot objects, right? So here, for advantages, we are showing movements. We can say it. Why the movement is been happening? Because there is a change in the environment, right? And because of the change in the environment, the organisms give a response, and that is what the movement takes place in the organism, we can say it, right? So if you think a bit more about this, it becomes apparent that all this movement in response to the environment, this is very important line, okay, is carefully controlled. Each kind of a change in the environment evokes an appropriate movement in response. Nodi, yavaga environmental change aagta idiyo, right? Then what happens? The body gives a movement in the form of a response from the environment. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಅದ್ರ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಅಂಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಡ್. ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾವು ಬಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪಟ್ ಅಂತ ಜಿಗಿದ್ ಬಿಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಬಿನ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್. ಸಡನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಆಕ್ಷನ್, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ. ದಟ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ evokes, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಎಬ್ಬಿಸ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಯಾವುದು ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹಾವು ಬಂದಿದೆ, ರೈಟ್? ದಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್, then you are going to give a appropriate movement to the particular response. ನೋಡಿ, ಹಾವು ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಜಿಗಿತೀರಾ, ಕಾಲಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಲಿ ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ರನ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಫುಡ್ ಬಾಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕೊಂಡ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಚೀವಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ responses we are giving, and because of the responses there is movements are going to be takes place, and these all the movements are been controlled, right? So all the responses are been controlled, we can say here, right? See, when we want to talk to our friends in a class, we whisper rather than the shouting loudly. ನೋಡಿ, ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜೋರ್ ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾರು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋಲ್ಲ, ಟೀಚರ್ ಇರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಟೀಚರ್ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಇದ್ರೆ ಜೋರ್ ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಕುತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರ ಮನೆ ಸುದ್ದಿ ಇವ್ರ ಮನೆ ಸುದ್ದಿಯನ್ನ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಕೂಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪಿನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಯಾಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಏನೋ ಟೀಚರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಟೀಚರ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ದ ಸೌಂಡ್ it is going to be decreases, right? That is a change in the environment, and that decrease in the sound, you are going to show a response for that change in the environment, we can say here, right? The clearly the movement to be made depends on the event that triggering it. ಯಾವ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಟ್ರಿಗರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ಯೋ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ಯೋ, ಸೊ ಅದ್ರ ತಕ್ಕ ನೀವು ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ರೈಟ್? Therefore such controlled movement must be connected to the recognition of various events in the environment, followed by only the correct movement in a response. ನೀವು ನೋಡಿ, ಹಾವು ಬಂದಿದೆ, ನೀವು ಜಿಗಿತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಕಾಲಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾವಿದೆ, ನೀವು ಜಿಗಿತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಹಂಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಅದು ತಪ್ಪಾಗಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೀವು ಜಿಗಿಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕಚ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸಿ, ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ದೆ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಲಿಡಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಜಿಗಿದ್ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ ಕಂಡ ತಕ್ಷಣ. These are the proper response, correct response, right? So these correct responses are been controlled by the different body organs, right? ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ಗಳು, ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿ each and every organs, they are been controlled and they are been given a response for those movements ಅಂತ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. See, in other words, a living organism must use systems providing a control and coordination in keeping with the general principles of body organization. In a multicellular organism, even the specialized tissues are used to provide these control and coordination activities. ನೋಡಿ, ನಾವು ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ನಾನು ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಪಾಠ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಕೈ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಮೈ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಶೋಯಿಂಗ್ ದ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ಏನಕ್ಕೆ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನೋಡಿ, ನಂಗೆ ಈ ತರ ಕೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತಂದಾಗ ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗಿವ್ my mind will give instructions to the hand to raise upward and show a hand towards a camera, right? Self ಹೊಡಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ automatic my mind will say that, give a smile, right? So like here, see, these are the specialized tissues which have been present in the body. Those we call it as the muscular tissues. ನಮ್ಮ muscles ಗಳು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೆ, right? And those muscles are been connected with the nervous tissues, ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಈ ನರ್ವಸ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂಗಳು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. And because of these movements, ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ಕೈಯನ್ನ ಎತ್ತಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಮಸ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ನರ್ವಸ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. Then the brain also gives directions. Then only what happens means these three are going to be work together, right? And that is we call it as coordination activities. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ನಾನು ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಕೈ ಎತ್ತ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎತ್ತ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹಾಕಿ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ it is not working, right? They are not in a coordination ಅಂತ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. See, and these coordination work, it is been always controlled by the main, that is a master part of the body, that is a brain, we call here, right? So the brain is going to be controlled each and every activities of the body, we say. See, there have been two words now, very important definitions. So as we are giving a response, right, as we are giving a movement for a particular response, those responses we call it as a stimuli ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ response ಗೆ ನಾವು movement ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, right? ಅಂದ್ರೆ there is a change in the environment, and because of the change we are going to be respond, and that particularly we call it as a stimuli ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಚೋದನೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಚೋದನೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಗ ನಾವು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಹಾವು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಚೋದನೆ ಸಿಕ್ತು, ಜಂಪ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹೊಡಿತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಲೈಕ್ ಹಿಯರ್ our body shows a response for change in the environment, right? That is we call it as a stimuli. The change in the environment to which a living organism's response are called as a stimuli. So here there is one more definition, as I said, the coordination, right? As I said, the example about the hand, brain, right? And the various tissues which are been present inside the body. What is coordination here? The working together of various organs in an organism to produce a proper response to a particular stimulus. ಆ ಪ್ರಚೋದನೆಗೆ ತಕ್ಕದಾದಂತಹ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು, ರೈಟ್? ಆ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆಯೋ, ಬಾಡಿಲಂತ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ಇದೆಯೋ, ದೇ ಮಸ್ಟ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಟುಗೆದರ್. Then only there is a response we can give for a stimulation, right? And those working together of the various organs, we call it as a coordination anta navli ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, right? The working together of various organs in an organism to produce a proper response to a stimulus is called as a coordination anta navli ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Here, for the stimulus and response, everything, for doing these things, our body requires energy. Body ಏನ್ ಬೇಕು? ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಬೇಕು ಅಲ್ವಾ? ನೋಡಿ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ. Okay, see, I'll come towards one more time, just a type of a revision note from Rana, and then we'll start the lesson. See, all the living organisms respond and react to changes in the environment around them, and the changes in the environment to which the organism respond or react are called as stimuli, such as light, heat, cold, sound, smell, touch. For each and everything, we are going to be a respond. ಎಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಲೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತೀವ್ರತೆ ಬಂತು ಕಣ್ಣು ಮುಚ್ಕೋತೀವಿ, ಹೀಟ್ ಬಿಸಿ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಕೈ ತೆಕ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಕೋಲ್ಡ್ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವೆಟರ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಬಾಡಿನ ಬೆಚ್ಚಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತೀವಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಂದ್ರೆ ಹೋಗೋದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೋಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ. ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬಂತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಿವಿನ ಮುಚ್ಕೋತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸ್ಮೆಲ್ ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗ ಸ್ಮೆಲ್ ಬಂತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೂಗನ್ನ ಮುಚ್ಕೋತೀವಿ. ಯಾರ ಚೂಡ್ತಾ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ದೂರ ಸತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದ್ ಕಪಾಳಕ್ ಬರೆಸ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? So these kind of responses we are doing here, right? Here, those responses are commonly called as stimulus anta ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Organisms move in response to various kind of stimulus, right? Even for the light, heat, nutrition, food, etc., etc. And both in a plants and animal, the stimuli are of a different type, right? ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆನೂ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಆಗಿ ಸಿಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾವು ಬಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಓಡೋಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ? They will stand there only. Their response is of different types, right? And our response is of a different type, he says. That is what each and every organism, it may be a plant, it may be an animal, their responses are to a stimuli is of a different manner, right? See, so all the activities in the animals, especially in our body, are controlled and coordinated by a nervous as well as the endocrine system. ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಲಿ ಎಂಡೋಕ್ರೈನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇದೆಯೋ, ನರ್ವಸ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇದೆಯೋ, ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಯಾವ ತರ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಹೌ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಬಿನ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ನರ್ವಸ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ, ಎಂಡೋಕ್ರೈನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್, ರೈಟ್? See, the first one is about the nervous system. A nervous system, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ nervous system present ಇದೆ. You can take an atom, there is also nervous system is present, even in the human beings, nervous system is been present, right? See, the movement in the organism, the ability of organisms to move in a certain places, from one place to another place, right? That is, we call it as a locomotion. The ability of organism to move certain body parts, that is, we call it as a movements, right? And these movements are in response to stimuli. Up to now, we have been discussed in the introduction part of the topic. And now see here, there is a one more kind of a part, that is, we call it as endocrine glands. Endocrine glands are especially related to producing the chemicals, and those chemicals are being called as hormones. In a plants, we call it as a phytohormones. In animals, we call it as like hormones only. See, the hormones are nothing but chemical messages which are assist the nervous system in carrying out the various function. And these hormones or chemicals are being secreted by the various glands in the body, right? And these hormones, even they are been coordinating the movements of the plant. ಯಾವ ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ಕಡೆ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ಸ್ ಗಳು ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಷನ್ ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ ತರದನ್ನ ಫರ್ದರ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲಿಯೋಣ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ mainly we are discussing the two things, one about the nervous system, one about the endocrine glands, especially in the plants, even in the animals, we can say it. See, there is a one coordination by the brain, how it is going to be work. ನೋಡೋಣ ಒಂದು ಯಾವ ತರ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಸಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಫೋನ್ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಕೊನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಳು ಲೇಡಿ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಫೋನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎತ್ತೋದನ್ನ, ರೈಟ್? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಫೋನ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಯಾವ ತರ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ? ಮೊದಲು ಕೇಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ರಿಂಗ್ ಆಗೋದು ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಫೋನ್ ರಿಂಗ್ ಆಗೋದು ಕೇಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸತಿ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಲೈಟ್ ಬೀಳೋದು ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಅದ್ರ ತಕ್ಕಂಗೆ ನಾವ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟರ್ಗಳು ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ವರ್ಕ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಅವರ್ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ವರ್ಕ್. See, when we hear the ringing of the phone, it goes to a message to the brain. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫೋನ್ ರಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಬ್ರೈನಿಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ ಮೆಸೇಜ್, and then the brain, it gives again a message to the effectors. Effectors ಗಳಿಗೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ್ದು ಮಸಲ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ನರ್ವಸ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಕಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಏನಂತ? ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡುವ ಫೋನಿಗೆ, ಫೋನ್ ಎತ್ತಿ ಮಾತಾಡು, ರೈಟ್? So like here, receptors and effectors, when they have been working properly, then only there is a coordination is going to be takes place in an organism ಅಂತ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. Okay, see, we'll come towards the nervous system. First ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ nervous system ಬಗ್ಗೆ. That is the animal nervous system ಅಂತ ನಿಮಗೆ 7.1 ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. See, the control and coordinations are provided by the nervous and muscular tissues, especially in the human beings or in the animals. Nervous tissue, it is been made up of an organized network of nerve cells or neurons, right? And is specialized for conducting the information via electric impulses from one part of the body to the another part, right? So these informations, how they are been going to be transferred. If it is a pen, it is my hand. What happens? ನಾನು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ಕೈಗೆ ನಾನು ಪೆನ್ನಿಂದ ಚುಚ್ಕೋತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಚುಚ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಚುಚ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನ ಪೆನ್ ಚುಚ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ? ನೀವು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಪೆನ್ ಚುಚ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೋಡಿ, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ? ಬ್ರೈನಿಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹೆಂಗ್ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ? ಇನ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ impulses, in the form of information. So these information ಯಾರು ಕ್ಯಾರಿಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, see, ಈ ಸ್ಕಿನ್ ಗೆ ಅಟ್ಯಾಚ್ ಇರುವಂತ nerve cells or we can say the neurons, they are being transferring the information ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, it may be a spinal cord, it may be a brain, ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ information ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಯಾವ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ? in the form of electric impulses or in the form of chemical impulses, we can say it. So how those chemical impulses and electric impulses are going to produce in the nerve cells, I will discuss, right? See, as I said, the receptors, these are specialized tip of some nerve cells that detect the information from the environment. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಷ್ಟೊತ್ತು ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಏನೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲೈಸ್ nerve cells ಗಳು ಅವೇನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇನ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಟಿಮ್ಯುಲೈನ ಗ್ರಹಣ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ದೋಸ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇದು ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು. There are some receptors you can see on your screen, that is about the ears, ಕಿವಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಫೋನೋ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಫೋನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸೌಂಡ್, ರೈಟ್? ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಫೋನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೆಸರು ಕೊಟ್ಟರು, ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ, ರೈಟ್? ಫೋನೋ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್. What we are doing by the phonoreceptors or ears? ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, that is a hearing, right? And apart from that, even the balancing of the body, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬಂತು ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ, ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬಂತು ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಏನೋ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಭೂಕಂಪ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? ಬಾಡಿನ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಓಡಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? These kind of responses we can say it. Second one is about eyes or receptors. Those are commonly called as a photoreceptors ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಲೈಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಗ್ರಹಣ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಲೈಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So those are called as a photoreceptors. The main function is about the eyes, ನೋಡೋದು, ರೈಟ್? ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬ್ರೈನಿಗೆ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, that is effectors. One more is about skin. The skin are called as a thermoreceptors. ನೀವು ಹಾಟ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕೋಲ್ಡ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗ್ರಹಣ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ನೋಡುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? So those are called as a thermoreceptors, that is a heat or a cold, even the touch, ಯಾರೋ ಮುಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, touch, the sensation, right? One more is about the nose. Those we call it as olfactory receptors. Their main function is about smell detection. ಮೂಗು ನೋಡ್ತೀರಾ ಕೊರೋನಾ ಬಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮೂಗು ಸ್ಮೆಲ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ olfactory receptors are not going to be work. Hey, right? Commonly ಯಾರೋ ಮನೆ ಬೇರೆ ಮನೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಮೆಲ್ ಭಾರಿ ಉಂಟದ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರ ಮನೆ ಕಡೆ ಓಡೋದು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ನೋಡೋಣ ಅಂತ ತಿನ್ನಕ. So these kind of responses we are going to give here, and those are called as olfactory receptors. One more is about tongue. That is commonly called as gustatory receptors, right? So gustatory receptors means we says that which detect the taste, right? ಯಾವುದು taste ಅನ್ನು ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ gustatory receptors ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, right? Olfactory ಅಂದ್ರೆ which can detect the smell ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. The main function is to detect taste detection, and even it has been helping for the balance of the body, we can say. tongue ನೋಡಿ ನಾಲಿಗೆ ಹಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಹೆಂಗಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಬರಬೇಕು, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ದೋಸ್ ಆರ್ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್ as says that they are been getting the information, right? ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಇದು? ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ತಗೋತಾ ಇದೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಅಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ it is been sending to the brain. ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್, ಇದನ್ನ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ತಗೋತಾ ಇದೆ, ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ? ಬ್ರೈನಿಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ದೆನ್ ಹೌ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಬಿನ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕಿನ್ ಇಂದ how it is going to a brain, right? So there the nervous cells are being present, or we say them as a neurons. ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ neurons anta ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, or else nervous cells anta navilli ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So this is the structure of a neuron. This is very important structure. They are going to be asked for the 3 marks in the annual examination. ಎಲ್ಲ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, ರೈಟ್? ಈ ವರ್ಷನೂ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. So it is a structure of a neuron. ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Okay, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬುಕ್ಕಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. By using that you can draw. There is a extra labelings ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 2-3 ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ. measles ಇಲ್ಲ. Okay, there is a one labeling, it is left. One more is synaptic knobs ಕೂಡ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು node of Ranvier ಕೂಡ ಇಲ್ಲ. Okay, these labelings it is been not there, but apart from that almost all labelings are been there ಅಂತ ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. Okay, okay, let me come towards how this neuron is made up of. Here a neuron commonly it is made up of 2 parts. One we call it as a cell body, another one we call it as a cell processes. ಒಂದು ಸೆಲ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಸೆಲ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೆಲ್ ಬಾಡಿಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಸೈಟಾನ್, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸೆಲ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾನ್ಸ್ ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ಡೆಂಡ್ರಾನ್ಸ್. ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಡೆಂಡ್ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. ಓಕೆ, ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ಕಮ್ ಟುವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ a cell body, or we call it as cyton. Okay, ನೋಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ cell body, right? It contains a granular cytoplasm which is called as a neoplasm. See here, this particular portion ಏನಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, see this particular portion of the cell, right? So where inside that cell body there is a cytoplasm is present, and that cytoplasm we are calling it as a neoplasm anta navili heltivi, right? We are calling it as a neoplasm, right? See here, okay, so here next one is about this neoplasm, or we can say the cytoplasm of the cell body, where if you see this particular structure, what happens means there is a granular structures are being present. See here, the dot like structures are being present inside that particular body, and those structures we call it as a Neelkante granule. Okay, these are called as a Neelkante granule, and these Neelkante granule main function is to synthesis or to produce a protein. Okay, and that is what the Neelkante granules is the center of protein synthesis we call here. See about the next one, that is about the, if we come towards how they are getting the energy for the functioning of neurons, how that cell body of the neuron is getting the energy. That is, there is a various numerous mitochondria are being present in the cell body. This says mitochondria ಸುಮಾರು ಏನಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ mitochondria and those mitochondria are going to produce energy for the cell body or a neuron, we can say. See about the next portion. The next one is about axon, right? You can see the diagram of axon. It is the longest cell process of a cyton. Its diameter is about uniform, and it contains again the fluid that is called as exoplasm. Cell body cytoplasm neoplasm anta karatvi, axon anta cytoplasm anna we call it as a exoplasm, right? See here. Commonly axon is covered by exoplasm. Exolemma may be covered by a layer of biphospholipid, which is been called as a myelin sheath. You can see this myelin sheath, alva? The axon on the sheath in the cover agide, on the layer in the cover agide, and that is we call it as a myelin sheath. That myelin sheath is commonly covered by biphospholipids. In cell itto, cell alli exoplasm ide, okay, and exoplasm anna yaar cover ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ exolemma ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. That exolemma, it is commonly covered by a phospholipids, which is called as a myelin sheath. Wherever the myelin sheath, you can see there is absent at some places. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ಯಾಪ್ ಇದೆಯೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ myelin sheath ಏನಾಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತ absent ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. Okay, myelin sheath is discontinuous around the axon. See, there are interruptions where the axon is uncovered by the myelin sheath, are called as a nodes of Ranvier. You can see it in the axon. See this particular place. You can see that these particular places where there is there is no axon. Myelin sheath absent. If you see this particular structure, there is a myelin sheath has been absent, right? And these structures where the myelin sheath has been absent, that we call it as a node of Ranvier. ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರಂತ node of Ranvier ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. Okay, here there is the cells are been present, that is called as Schwann cells. At the end, you can see there is again the root like structures. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ರೂಟ್ ತರ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಗಳನ್ನು ಕಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, and that is we call it as nerve ending. ಅದನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ nerve ending ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. If I enlarge this particular diagram, see here that this is a portion. ಇದನ್ನ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯೋ ರೌಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂತ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್, and that particular structure we call it as a synaptic knob ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಎಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅದನ್ನ? Synaptic knob. Okay, this particular nerve ending structure that is called as a synaptic knob. We'll discuss how the synaptic knob is going to be a function. See, what are the parts of the neurons? That is about dendrites, cell body, as well as one more structure that is called as a synaphase. See, how the neuron is going to be a work here. Neuron ಯಾವ ತರ work ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? Commonly in dendrites itto, that is a hair like structures. You can see here the dendrites, they are about hair like structures. These dendrites, they startingly acquires information, means the dendrites are been attached to your skin. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿ ತಗೊಂಡಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲ ಚುಚ್ಚದಂತ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಕಿನ್ ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಅಟ್ಯಾಚ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, the dendrites are been attached. ಆ dendrites ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ information acquire ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Information is been acquired. Okay, and the cell body, right? Next one is the cell body. The acquired information, it is going to travel as an electric impulses. Innೊಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಇವಾಗ. So the information is acquired, it is in a which form? Now formally information acquired ಮಾಡ್ತು body, right? That is in the form of charges. Commonly ಒಂದು ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಚುಚ್ತಾ ಇದೆ information of video that is commonly acquired in the form of charges, and that is we call it as chemical impulses ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಸೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆಂಡ್ರೈಟ್ ಗೆ ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ in the form of electric impulses. Okay, the chemicals will transfer the impulses in the form of electric impulses. Now see here, a dendrite ಏನಿತ್ತು chemical whatever. Okay, a dendrite information ಯಾವ್ದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂತು? Chemical information ಬಂತು. ಆ chemical information ನ it is been transferred into electric impulses, right? And that electric impulses to the dendrites, it is passing to the cell body, and to the cell body it is passing up to the synaptic knob, or we can say up to the nerve ending ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು. See, the axon, the longest fiber on the cell body, it is called as the axon. It transmits the electric impulses from the cell body to dendrites of the next neuron. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ ಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಅಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ the chemical and impulses ತಗೊಂಡಿತ್ತು, that is all in the electric form only, we say here. See, in between the two are nerves ending. ಎರಡು ನರ್ವ್ ಎಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡಾಗ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ದು ಈ ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ದು ನರ್ವ್ ಎಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡಾಗ what is there, what are the gap will be there between the two nerve ending, that is we call it as synaphase ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. See, it is a gap between the nerve ending of one neuron and a dendrite of the another neuron, right? Here electric signals is converted into chemical signals for a onward transmission. Now see here, what are the information that is came from dendrite to up to nerve ending? Alva, ಈ nerve ending ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ nerve ending ನಡುವೆ ಗ್ಯಾಪ್ ಇದೆಯೋ, that gap is called as synaphase. So ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ electric impulses are converting into chemical impulses. Electric impulses are converting into chemical impulses. How those chemical impulses, what are the chemical impulses, we'll study here. You can see, as it says that the dendrites acquires the information, and that is for chemical information that is going to be increased. Sorry, in chemical information. See, this information acquired at the end of a dendritic tip of a nerve cell, set of chemical reactions. A chemical reaction acquire ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತು, and that create an electric impulse in the dendrite. The impulse travels from dendrite to the cell body and then along the axons to end. At the end of an axon, the electric impulses set off the releases of some chemicals. So now those electric impulses, again what they do, they start to produce some chemicals, especially at the tip. You can see there is a round structures have been there, right? Some pinkish kind of a dark pink like a structures you can observe. Those are nothing but the electric impulses ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Okay, so there is a gap between these two. In gap ಇದೆಯೋ, here this particular gap we say as a clip, that is we call it as a synaptic clip, we says that is we call it as a synaptic clip. So these synaptic clips, we can say that what happens in this particular place, there is information is going to be transferred from one neuron to another neuron, right, in the form of chemical signals or chemical impulses. Here what this says, at the end of the axon, the electric impulses set off the release of some chemicals, and those chemicals cross the gap of the synaphase and start a similar electric impulse in a dendrite of the next neuron. This is a general scheme how a nervous impulses travels in the body. A similar synaphase finally allows the delivery of such impulses from neuron to the other cells, such as a muscle cells or a gland cells. It is thus no surprise that nervous tissue is made up of organized network of nervous cells or neurons. It is specialized for conducting the information via electric impulses from one part of the body to the another part. So we can say that now how the information transfers from Linda go right from hand to the brain. Commonly we say that first in the chemical form, then electric impulses, then chemical, then electrical, then chemical, then electrical. Like this, it reaches up to the brain, right? So in this way, the neuron works, we can say. So what kind of chemicals are going to release this? That is very important. ಯಾವ chemicals release ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, right? See, those chemicals we call it as acetylcholine. See, a chemical reaction that occurs and create electric impulses. These impulses travels from dendrite and finally reaches to axon ending. Illi synaptic nerve banda tilkolli. Synaptic nerve bandaga. Now what happens? That electric impulses must be now converting into chemicals, right? So what happens? These electric impulses release some chemicals, and those chemicals we call it as acetylcholine from the synaptic nerve. Synaptic nerve ಇಂದ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಈ chemicals ಗಳು release ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, and these chemicals are going to be transported to the next neuron in the form of charges. In the form of charges. See, there is a junction where the neuron it is been attaching to the muscle fibers. So that junction we call it as a neuromuscular junction. You can see this particular structure. Only neurons with the muscles attached ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ neuromuscular junctions ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Okay. So once the information it is been transferred to the next dendrite, right? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿನಾಫೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಯ್ತು, acetylcholine one synaptic nerve ಇಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು synaptic nerve ಗೆ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು, right? And these message transmitted from one neuron to another neuron or one cell to one nerve cell to another cell, and finally the message is sent to the brain, that is a central nervous system, or we can say it as a spinal cord via sensory nerves, right? And the CNS or a central nervous system that send a message to the muscles via motor nerves. These are types of neurons we're discussing it, right? The muscles of the affected organisms shows a response. Then only organism is going to give a response, we can say. So these gap between the two cells, one neuron and the inner neuron gap ideo, that is called as a synaphase, or we call it as a gap. And see here how the message it is being transferred, right? When a receptor receives a neurotransmitters, ನೋಡಿ ಯಾವ ತರ ಕಲರ್ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ pink, right? The bubbles, the pink spheres, they are been moving, and that is how the message it is going to be detected, or we can say it is going to be travel. One ವೇಳೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ ವರ್ಕೇ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, right? Nervous system ವರ್ಕೇ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ that body we call it as a paralytic body ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Paralysis ಆಗಿದೆ, ಲಕವ ಹೊಡೆದಿದೆ, ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಟ್ಟಿ ಚೂಟಿ ಏನೋ ಮಾಡಿ that will not give any kind of responses. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು, right? This is how neuron look and the neuron do a function. Notable neurons, especially in the spinal cord, how they are in that, and especially the neurons in the brain, how exactly they look. Commonly, it is a network like a structure. Now, manali, now volleyball advocate jali iruto, net iruto, the same kind of a structure you can observe in the neurons also. Okay, this is about in the spinal cord, even in the neurons in the brain, we can say. And next activity about the reflex action we'll discuss in the next class. If you people are having any kind of doubt up to now, you can ask for the another 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, then we'll wind up today's class here. ಯಾರಿಗಾದ್ರೂ ಡೌಟ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಏನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವೋ ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಡೌಟ್ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. If anybody is having a doubt, they can ask. There have been lakhs together of neurons are been present in our body, or we can say millions together. There is no count. It depends upon the size of the body of an organism. ಎಷ್ಟು size ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆನೆ ದಪ್ಪ ಇದ್ರೆ so more number of neurons are been present. ಇಚ್ಚಬತ್ತು ಸಣ್ಣದಿದ್ರೆ less number of neurons. Like that, the number of neurons are vary from organism to organism.
ಸುಷ್ಮಾ ಕೇಳು. Suhani. Yes, Suhani.
Sir, meaning of CNS, full form, sir.
Central nervous system ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಲ್ಲ.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Next,
anybody? Yes, Suhani. Devidas. MDRS 503.
ಸರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಂದ್ರು ಜರ ಚಂದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ರಿ ಸರ್.
ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಎಷ್ಟು ಫುಲ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ನಿಮ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ರೀ, ಅಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀನಿ.
ಮತ್ತೊಂದ್ ಸರ್ತಿ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ನ ನೋಡಿ.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್.
ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೆ, ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನೋಡಿ.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್.
ಓಕೆ. ನ್ಯೂರಾನ್ ಇಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಆಫ್ ನರ್ವಸ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂತಿದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವ ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಸೆಲ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು. ಓಕೆ.
ಹಾ ರೀ ಸರ್.
ವಿಲ್ ಎಂಡ್ ಅಪ್ ಸರ್.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ಓಕೆ.